Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to another episode of For Us Therapeutics with your hosts. I'm Dr. B.
Dr. LaKeith.
Dr. Gigi.
And as usual, before we get into today's topic, like, comment, subscribe, click that little bell notification icon on your screen. That way you can get updates from when we release a new episode of one of our reels. And today's topic, we are talking about infidelity, part 2, because we've talked about this before. But we didn't have Dr. Gigi Bell here the last time. And her insight is very, very valuable. And what we're going to talk about, we're going to center it around certain things. How it shows up in therapy. What are the fallouts of it? What are some of the things that people talk about when they come to therapy when it comes to infidelity? And I want to start off by saying it ain't going nowhere. I'm sorry. Infidelity's been here. It's here now. It's going to be here. I am not saying it's okay. I am not justifying it. I'm just saying that as a therapist who does couples counseling, I have come to a healthy place where I just accept that it is the reality and possibility in a lot of situations. Would I want that happening to me? Absolutely not. But I don't judge people who cheat. You know why? Because people going people. And in the midst of their peopling, they're going to pull you into their peopling. You just become an innocent bystander in their peopling. I'm not saying that it's okay. You're going to see me in this episode. You're going to think I'm defending cheating. And I am not. I've just accepted it. And I am non-judgmental of it. And I want to give context to it. So, with that being said, does anybody got anything to say before I pass the mic over with the first question? No?
No.
I'm still laughing at the decolonization thing. Dr. Gigi had a funny moment off camera, everybody, where I was like, I'm trying to decolonize this. She was like, what? Not that she's against it. I just picked the wrong topic to try to decolonize. So real quick, let me ask you both this question. How does infidelity show up in when you're doing therapy or your workspaces? Because sometimes I've had coworkers come to me because I had the gift of counseling on my heart long before I even stepped in the office. And they just want to talk about what they're dealing with. So in our collective experience, whoever wants to go, Dr. Bell can go first. All right. How has infidelity shown up in your workspace, in your work life, and whatever it may be?
In the therapy practice, it shows up in a variety of ways, right? So you can get the client who's coming in who's had a bad breakup, and the reason for the breakup is the infidelity. Mm-hmm. And then that shows up in a litany of layered emotions, right? Mm-hmm. Like you are feeling dejected, you are feeling rejected, you are feeling low and not good enough. So it starts to impact your value, and we start to do this worth assessment, right? If I was lovable enough, if I was attractive enough, if I was good enough, then this wouldn't have happened, which is not true. But naturally, that is a space that people fall into. And then you also have the presentation when it's a couple and the cheating has occurred, but the couple is married, let's say, and they're still trying to navigate the space after the infidelity has happened. And of course, you can imagine that shows up really layered between most people. And you guys do couples counseling as well.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Couples, families, individuals. But you said something that resonated with me, where the fallout of if I was good enough, would it have changed things? You are right. People say that a lot. Like they felt that though they were lacking. And it is one of those things to explain it. There's a possibility in this scenario here, 9 times out of 10, they were just going to cheat regardless. It was nothing more you could. In some cases there are. Some cases there are some things that me and you talked about this before. We had talked about it where we said sometimes in couples counseling, when we look at infidelity, we have to look and see and people in the comments did not like this, how did both parties contribute to the infidelity? They did not like that. How does it show up for Yuki?
Well, interestingly enough, for me, it shows up in, if I have to be honest, most of my clients are the people who have actually cheated. Mm-hmm. And it shows up in some very interesting ways. To Dr. Gigi's point, it's very layered. One, sometimes I may have a client that comes in because they cheat on their significant other and they're trying to figure out why that happened, what was going on, just trying to unpack that. Then, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my favorite all-time clients, a client who was a serial cheater, even still, while actively in therapy, trying to get an understanding of like, okay, so what does this mean? And not in the sense of they felt any type of way about the infidelity itself as far as how it's going to impact their partner, because their partner had no idea, but more so just trying to get an understanding of, well, why do I do this? And long story short, which I thought were one of my favorite clients, when we got to the bottom of it, the issue was this, and I think it's true for a lot of people. His morality around infidelity did not match what it was he thought he was supposed to have. By that, what I mean is this. He was always told cheating is bad, you shouldn't cheat. And I'm not saying that messaging isn't wrong, but what he ultimately realized was that for him, his moral compass, because I think this really boils down to, in some instances, his moral compass was that, well, my wife isn't getting hurt, she still feels loved and supported, needs are getting met, so who am I really hurting? Maybe for my moral compass is a situation where like that's the one thing I can negotiate. And so, of course, as a therapist, it's an interesting space to be in, because what I realized was, even though I wanted to challenge that, I recognized that I don't necessarily have the authority to push back on his morality if he's coming to the conclusion that, well, for me, that's not a deal breaker. We can weigh the consequences, but if morally, internally, he doesn't feel as though like, yeah, I'm wrong, I'm hurting anybody, what am I really debating? Because in that scenario, it's a case of, the only thing I can say is, well, eventually these things come to light, but the argument, and he even said, is it hasn't come to light now. Is my wife hurting? Is her needs not being met? Is she not feel loved?
Therapy is not about, to your point, it's not a moral debate. I laughed and looked at Dr. Bell because I am fascinated with how the human mind operates to justify the actions of the person. That is not a condemnation of anybody's action. I don't judge human beings. You cannot do our profession and judge people, right? I don't judge people, but I am always intrigued by it from a psychological standpoint, because we will find the silver lining in the majority of what we do. I've had friends come to me and be like, Brian, I've cheated. And this has happened because my friends, I don't want their wives thinking like, who he talking about? People have come to me and be like, Brian, I've cheated. And I've been like, oh, okay, all right, well, how you feel? I don't know, I don't feel too good. Okay, all right. So what happened? They give me the details. And I say, okay, cool. Well, what's your next step? I don't know. When I hear I don't know, that means you got away. That means your home is intact, the other person doesn't know, and you got away. You probably gonna do it again because you got away. Now you got a template, a game plan of how to do it because it worked. Testosterone will kick in. Adrenaline will kick in. If you say, I don't know, you probably going to do it again. And that's cool. For you, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. I would just encourage you to be honest with yourself, that you know you're going to do it again. Now, you want to wrestle with your morality on it, perfectly fine. We can come to therapy. We'll iron out that goal and figure out where the dissonance is, how you want to resolve it. But the rationalization of the action will always be there, and it's subjective to the person. I want everybody to know that. And the fallout of it can be very, very detrimental to the other person, and even sometimes to the cheater. Because I've had people come to therapy and like, I'm laughing because as a male therapist, and I don't want to suck up the oxygen, as a male therapist, I have a 50-50 split between female, male clients, for everybody to know. My male clients come because they just, men understand. There's a lot of men that don't want to sit with women because they worried about being judged, right? Because they about to tell me some real honest truth that they don't really got to go through layers of explaining. I've had clients that love the woman they're with, and they got a slew of options. And then they get caught with the one that they don't really care about. And in this it was Dr. Bell's face. It is... They get caught with the one. It is the one. They like, I don't really care about it. The question comes up. They come to therapy. They're like, you know what they hit me with, Dr. B? I'm like, what she hit you with? How could you love me but keep cheating with the same person? I get it. It ain't that complicated to me. It is very possible to love somebody and keep dealing with somebody because it's an ease of access. It's a simple formula with an ease of access. You've caught me, you've contacted them, and they still there. Not saying it's okay. But there is a ease of access that makes the behavior likely to be repeated. What are your thoughts, Dr. Bell?
Yeah, I hear you. I think the question of how could you love your partner, and even though you have access to this other person, it's easy. You've got a template, a blueprint now. You are able to continue to make this decision because it's a conscious choice that we're making.
Yes.
I think the love part is, I think when we are starting to define love, right, people have many definitions and it means different things to different people. I think in that context, what I would be hearing my clients say is, you made a commitment to me, and that was a part of your expression of love. And now you've changed the terms of that commitment. And that's super problematic. So, for instance, with your client who's like, you know what, I have discovered in my self journey that I like to cheat. It is something that I do. I identify as a cheater.
Yeah.
There's no judgment, right? In the spaces that we operate in, like, that's cool. That's why we have polyamory. That's why we have different spaces for you to exist in your free, full personhood. But you entered a contract with this other person, right? And I'm speaking in business terms, even though marriage is, legally a contract. But in business terms, we entered a contract. We had set rules that we were abiding by. That's how I signed it. And now you're renegotiating the contract behind my back. The terms are now different. That is super problematic. So whether or not the act of cheating, I think we all agree as clinicians, is a natural thing that in your body, the expression of wanting to be with someone else is a natural feeling that happens. The changing of the terms of a contract, that's problematic.
Well, that's fair.
Agree. Because when you mentioned the love piece, I couldn't help but pause and ask, or think to myself, I should say, well, it sounds like we're operating on two different definitions of what love is. And what love is going to look like, or what we want it to look like, or we need to look like. And I understand that love can transform. As in, like, 1 minute I came into this thinking that monogamy was something I could do or I want to do. And then something happened to where as though, okay, I don't know if I really can just do that or if I really want to do that, right? So I'm always curious about when people say, when they say, like, well, I can still love you and do that. I'm always thinking to myself, well, one, what's your definition of love? Is the same thing as your partner? And to Dr. Gigi's point, if that definition changed, is it really love if the definition got changed and you're doing these things? And granted, I still don't know about it, but they're still happening. And you know that my definition has not changed.
Or you assume my definition has not changed, right? Because all this behind the back stuff is going on. Which
speaks to a bigger issue, because if it's a situation where we get into the philosophy of love, and I don't want to do too much of that, particularly the clinical part, but then it gets to this conversation of, well, is it love if I have to do the most important things that could impact this relationship behind your back? And if that is still love, what type of love is that?
I don't know if y'all can see my face.
I can see your face.
I know you. I know. All right, everybody. I don't know if you can see my face when they're giving it. Both of you are correct. They are right. I'm gonna say that first. I think y'all are making. Y'all not making it too complicated. No, I'm straight face. I keep smiling because this is always a touchy topic, because I don't want to trigger nobody. I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. I don't want nobody to think that I am condoning what we can collectively agree is a immoral act. Even though in therapy, your morality is your morality. It's not for me to judge. So forgive my facial expressions when I'm laughing, because I can just imagine what people may say. You both are correct. I feel as though that to the average layperson, that is overly complicated. Speaking as a male, okay, speaking as a male, who has grown out of cheating, right? I'm using me as an example, as a case study for this, right? It's your face. It's your face. There's nothing wrong with it. Me, I can tell right now, me and you go to a conference, or me and you go to a meeting and somebody say something, you're the person I can't look at, because if I look at your face, I know that.
It's my processing face.
It's nothing wrong, because we here. We here. It's just why.
It was the growth for me. I was affirming the growth.
It's growth. We got to do the same time, like growth.
I appreciate it. I just know that when me and you go to a conference or something and somebody say something crazy, I'm not going to turn and look at you because I feel like you going to look at me and it'll be like, did you hear him? I'm not going to look at you because I'm going to laugh. So back to this is a funny episode. Back to the point of, yes, I used to cheat. Used to cheat frequently, as a matter of fact, and I grew out of it for the sheer fact that the person I ultimately ended up with, the person that's ultimately mine that I'm dealing with now, the person I ultimately love and want to marry, is the thought of doing harm to them and them leaving me. So harm and leaving, like this time is it. That ain't nothing scarier than when in a heteronormative relationship where the female has no reaction, ain't arguing, not yelling at you. It's a calm, okay, this happens one more time. That's it. I'm done.
I can hear her saying.
Right, yeah.
You just said
So do you want to watch this movie? You want to go out to eat?
Because the process of leaving you is already happening.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
that's what's
that is the scary part. Like that is, it's like, wow, we're really here.
Yeah.
Lay that as the foundation. The reason why, to bring it back to the point of how we got here, you two are right in your like the definition of love and everything. I think to the layperson, though, that's overly complicated because as a male, it's kind of simple of, no, I can love you. Looking at this contract, right? We agreed to these terms. We agreed to this. It's not that I'm renegotiating the terms of the contract. That's not what I'm doing at all. That's you going into the weeds of it. I love you. I'm not about to break up home. This person over here is just willing to offer me something that I want to try, sample, engage with, entertain at a basic, rudimentary, physical level in that regard, right? When I say that I feel like it's overly complicated to the layperson, it really is coming down to physical intimacy sometimes, not necessarily emotional intimacy. For the average male, and my anecdotal professional opinion, I saw a disagreement over there. I'm not saying it's okay.
No. The baseline is that cheating is not okay. That's the baseline.
That is the baseline.
Subpoint.
But it's understandable.
Well, and my subpoint is that I think cheating, the feeling and urge to want to cheat, is natural. Right.
Very
While
much
it's
so.
not okay, the subpoint is that feeling is natural. So I think that has to be the baseline foundation of the conversation.
I agree with you.
And still, I don't agree. So problematic in the sense that I hear you, and I've heard this in many therapy sessions where it's like it was a physical connection, a physical connection that I enjoyed, and I doubled back many times. Okay. Here's where I don't find it to be true. And seriously, from the perspective of clients, right? When you're sharing a home together, we're not talking about like boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. We're talking about sharing a home together, sharing a life together. You are taking resources out of our home and spending them in another space, right? So whether it's your time, whether it's your connectivity, whether it's your attention, right? All those things are necessary for a healthy relationship. You've taken those out of our home and you're spending them somewhere else with this physical connection. And I'm just saying, in a heteronormative situation, you're not enjoying that physical time for free. There are dinners, there's something that is occurring. So you're also now taking financial resources out of our home because, your wife likes to eat.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Dr. Bell, does the giving of financial resources irritate the female spirit or the woman
You saw
soul.
the
I
innate
did. I
irking
saw
of my
the.
soul.
I did.
An innate irking.
I did.
Because
Oh.
how you what? I mean,
No, I genuinely am enjoying you being on this podcast because so this has come up in therapy for me with clients. It's kind of like I've had clients say, Brian, I think that they were more upset that I spent money than even sleep with the person. I've heard those
not
things.
more probably, but in addition to there has
okay,
to be
all
an
right.
equivalent in manness.
Yeah.
That like if she crossed this line with that dude, like that's crazy.
There is, but it's more of a physical thing.
Right.
It is.
But we operate from different spaces.
You're right. We
so
definitely do.
Our safety and security is really wrapped up in a providing mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so like when we were starting to take resources out of our home, our safety, and I mean, in addition to physical safety, because of interacting with other people, is now. It's now like being brushed up against, and that doesn't feel good. And if your job and part of this contract is that you are a partner here to be a part of this household and provide, et cetera, and now you're doing these other things outside of the home, like your attention, your eye's not on the ball. Like that's crazy.
No, I can see where you're coming from. That's a fair way of breaking it down, because I think that when people are I know that when people are in the act of doing the infidelity, the one doing the perpetrating as the one, as far as being the victim of the action, they're not taking those things into consideration. Like, for instance, if you come from spending money, right? If you have an abundance, you probably don't think of it that way. Like, what's $100 here to go take you out to eat? What's $100 or $200 or $300 to go get a hotel when you have it, right? You're not thinking of those things in that regard. You're just thinking about the physical part, when we're going to get to the nitty gritty of it all. So in that regard, I can see why on the flip side from what you were saying, because it's not a or, it's an and in that regard, because your eyes aren't on the ball. You're taking it out of the household in that regard. Whereas on the other side, it's, we have enough. What did I really take that we would miss? Were you about to say something, Keith?
Well, to something that you said earlier, it kind of highlights something that I believe is true for a lot of things. Two things can be true at the same time, but in the instance of infidelity, it can be true for one side, but not true for the other side. By that, what I mean is this. To that situation of, well, it's just a physical thing, but I still love you. I don't think too much of it to go that deep to where it's anything more emotional, and that could be true, and that can't be true for the other person. But we have to also keep in the other mind that just because that's true for you, that does not necessarily mean that is the truth for the other person. As in, I can't tell you that you don't love me because I don't know how you feel.
Right.
But I can tell you that where I'm at right now, that does not feel like love.
And that would be a fair way of expressing it.
So I'd say, and that is usually, in my opinion, when you have conversations about infidelity, where one of the biggest issues lies, in the sense of, on one side, it's a case of this is all physical, it has nothing to do with love. And that's true for some people, unless they actually do love the person, but they're lying. But on the other side, it's also true to where, as though, like, I understand that you're saying that you love me, and I believe that you feel like that's true for you. I can't tell you how to feel, but what I'm telling you is that is not love for me.
You would be right.
That you can feel that you love me. I'm not even gonna say you think. You can feel like you love me, but that's not true for me. This is not what love feels like for me. If I feel as though this is humiliating or degrading, even if you tossing it off as just a physical thing, I can't sit here and say that feels like love. And you can say that to me all you want to, but I don't receive it or believe it in that particular way.
And that's a respectable perspective to have, because that's that person identifying clearly that I don't receive love that way. And if that's how you love someone, I don't want love that way in that regard. And Keith, there was something you said that made it. Dang it, it'll come back to me.
The two things can be true at the same time, but maybe...
No. When you were saying that, it made me think about... I have the second thing. The first thing, it kind of eluded me. Dang it, it'll come back to me. Because it tied into what you said. It will come back to me eventually, because I'm until it does. Did you have anything you wanted to say in response to Keith, Dr. Bell? You don't have to, no. So going back to what we said earlier as far as... Jeez, wow, I must really be tired, because all of my thoughts are actually escaping me right now. But there are certain instances where I've had in therapy where they did. There we go. It came back to me. Thank you, Keith. It did come back to me. To your point, like, unless they're lying, like, they might actually love the person. That's a thing. That is a thing, everybody. And one thing I tell people, when you're the person and you're in therapy and you're the one cheating, no judgment from me and anyone here, but I always warn people. I say, if you stay around the person you're cheating with long enough, you will get attached. There are the keys to liking are proximity, frequency, duration, and intensity. When these 4 things come into play, liking happens. Proximity, how close you are to one another. Intensity, how much energy is involved. Duration, how long you spend with each other, and frequently, how often it happens. If you stay with somebody too long, that is where you become territorial. Even if they know that you're in a relationship with somebody else. This happens in therapy as well, where all of a sudden the person coming to therapy that's doing the infidelity, they're talking about how they're their side piece, male and female. Their side pieces, they won't return my calls. They, like, what you think they doing? Well, they probably on a date. Mm-hmm. You think they're dating right now? Well, they're not in a relationship, but we had an agreement. It seems like there's plenty of agreements going on around here, and they're just doing their own thing. So I tell everybody that aside from that, where they could actually be in love, I think it's quite possible, and I feel like this might tie. You didn't make a facial expression at that, Dr. Bell, so I ain't gonna say you did, but it's possible that you could be in love with the person you're cheating with and you didn't flush it out and know it. You just woke up, no pun intended, you just woke up one day with them and like, dang, I think I'm catching feelings, because it all starts with you texting them and they're not responding. And the next thing you know, you and your feelings going through like, well, what could you be doing? Now you clocking them and checking on them, like, where you at? What you doing? Go ahead.
That's one of the reasons why when it comes to your point, when it comes to infidelity, and we're having conversations about it in therapy, that's one of the questions I do ask when we're kind of assessing it, like the frequency of it, how long it went on. Because if it's a situation where it's like, oh, we just, linked up whenever we have free time, so maybe like 1 or 2 times out the month, I'd be like, okay, this really could just be a fling that doesn't really mean anything more than just enjoying another person's physical company. But when there's a situation where like we text every day, I lied about the business trip and we went down to Atlanta, or I see them like every Friday or Saturday, we go out to lunch. In my mind, I think to myself, this is an infidelity that has crossed into a love affair.
Keith, it's interesting you say. What were you going to say? Oh, it's interesting you say that, because I can see how somebody would. You are right. There's no. This isn't a. I disagree with you. I just had an insight as you were saying it. I could see how like some people would look at that and be like, yeah, that don't mean I love that person.
I can believe that.
I just like their company.
And
like,
maybe you don't feel like you're in love or love that person, but there is what you just said. There's clearly an attachment to this person. And attachment is emotional, right?
And
you call it emotional what you want, but attachment is emotional. So if you're checking where this person is and what they're doing, etc., you are emotionally attached to this individual. And the chances are is that person. That's the thing that is so interesting to me in the cost calculation of infidelity, right? Is that you don't control how this other person, not just your partner that you're cheating on, but the other person that you're cheating with, you can't control the emotionality that's going to come out of that person.
No, you cannot.
You have zero control over that. So if you are creating this emotional attachment that we'll say isn't love, but it's something, there's some emotion there, you don't know what that's going to look like. And you don't know what the fallout or the recourse is going to be if you're not able to give, to your point, if it's been like, I'm seeing you every week, I'm talking to you every day, all these things, and now I'm like, I need to pull this back. Like, this is getting a little out of hand. You have no idea what the response to that is going to be from that other person.
The reality is when we cheat, we open up Pandora's box, because the reality situation is, I don't care if you think you set a parameter, you can't control for what if you meet someone that you really get drawn into. Like you come across them, and it's just like whatever it is, it's just intoxicating. It just kind of pulls you in a way that you didn't think was going to happen. And in some cases where it has been like a deep affair, that's usually, I'll speak from my experience in therapy, that's usually what ended up happening. As like I was looking for to have a fun. I didn't realize that he or she was going to be so cool, so chill, that we have so much in common, that I could easily talk to them. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got these complex feelings for this person. When we step out into the unknown, and you don't know what you're going to find. And to hell with whatever parameters you put into place, because you can't control for every single thing that's going to happen.
No, you cannot control what they reaction. That's the other side of the equation of the person that you're cheating with. Let's say they know. Let's say they, like you, the example you gave, they know. Now they attached. You don't know what type of chaos they willing to, to cause in your life.
It's the reason why Fatal Attraction was a box office hit when it was released in 1987.
You don't know what they willing to do to get you.
Or to spite you.
Or to spite you. Like when it finally, let's say y'all have a bad breakup. That's why I paused, because I was like, I guess, would you classify it as a breakup? Let's say y'all have a falling out.
We'll say the end of the affair.
The end of the affair. And it's bad. You don't know how they gonna react, because at this point they know a lot about you, and now they know who that person is. I've had female clients. We was talking about this off camera. This is one of those off camera moments that came on camera. Me and Dr. Bell in particular were talking about it, where you said women are more they do a better cost analysis, more analytical in their decision making. I said that I was sharing with the group was that men and women, it's like a 50-50 split in my experience as far as therapy is when it comes to infidelity. Mm-hmm. It's just that women take a different road than men. Like, and we can get into that here shortly. Women tend to cheat up. Men tend to, in whatever direction they want to go, they cheat up, down, laterally, backwards, forwards. They don't necessarily cheat up the economic ladder. That's one of the things we talked about. But women set better boundaries in cases of infidelity than my experience of working with men. Like, women set a hard boundary and they stick to it. Do not call or text at this time. Do not do this. Do not do that. I've had women come to therapy, and when the boundary was violated, because they know they share intimate details about their lives with me, because they know I'm not going to judge, they say they'll run through their list. And I'm like, well, what happened to this person? Oh, no, we cut them off. Yeah, they tried to be pop slick and send me a DM.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting right next to the man I love. Yeah. I was like, oh, no. And then I even called him, don't you ever call me again? Don't you ever text me again? I told you, I warned you. That's that good. There's no more access to it. So women set better boundaries when it comes to things than men, in my honest opinion. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, that makes perfect sense, because let's be honest, it's the way that we've set things up for women in society, mm-hmm. right? So if it's a situation of you're a woman and you decide to engage in an affair for whatever your reason may be, is one, you're analyzing the fact that we still live in a world where if she cheats, she is the bigger monster than he is.
Do you feel that?
For sure.
Really?
For sure.
Because as a guy, you could be a SOB, a bastard, selfish, an asshole. Woman, you will never lose the SLUT title, the WHORE title, whatever else. You're damaged goods. You are completely untrustworthy in that way. We literally have podcasters who will get out there and say you have devalued yourself as a person, not even as a person, as a product to be considered for remarrying or dating. And so women have to take that into consideration if they decide to make those moves, because even though women have made a lot of progress in our society, let's be honest, it's still not enough.
No, not at all.
So you have to be very strategic about that, because let's be honest, as men, when we cheat, yeah, we can get demonized, but for the most part, we get the pass. We're still taught that it's to be expected. It's the reason why women have that emotional numbness, not all, but some have that emotional numbness when it happens, because they were conditioned to begin with, and maybe the first 2 times it happened, it really broke their heart, but by the 3rd or 4th time, it's just a case of, well, this is just how the show goes. Men, we're not conditioned to deal with that in the situation of like, if she cheats on me, it's a situation where it's like, oh, well, I'm just gonna be completely numb. We get emotional about it, but the emotion turns to anger and conquest and trying to redeem whatever pride or dignity or self-esteem that we have. So we condition infidelity in men and women in different ways to where it makes sense to me that women are more strategic, because let's be honest, when a woman is found out to cheat, she loses everything. Look at Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Bill Clinton was the married man. To this day, 20 years later, we still label Monica Lewinsky as the temptress, as the woman who ruined the presidency, and completely negating the fact that Bill Clinton was the president married to a wife that had a daughter.
That's a good point.
True.
I'm sorry, I got really passionate about that.
No, but very true.
Yeah. So what I was thinking was, because like I'm really steeped into, it is very difficult for me to judge human beings, because I've accepted that people, and you just gave me a good reminder, because in my mind, if a woman cheats, you cheated. All right, well, I wouldn't label you like a whore or a slut or anything of those negative connotations. That's a very I wonder, am I desensitized to or numb to cheating? Because I hear it so much in therapy. Like
Because I'll put you this way. I want you let's all take a time. Think about someone famous who had an affair maybe with someone else who was famous or lesser famous, right? And think about both parties. On very few occasions, unless the man was abusive or violent, does a man go through the fire, get dragged through the coals in the way that a woman does.
Nah, you don't, because the only one the one I thought about was the Tory Lanez Megan Thee Stallion situation. That's the only one. Then after that, I was like, I can't think of anyone.
Or even Alicia Keys and Swiss Beats, right? It's a situation where like, we put so much onus on her as a woman. You should have known better. But my mom thinks like, he's the man that's married to Mashonda, so he should know better. Not saying that it was right. I'm just saying it's the simple fact that we kind of dragged him through the fire. Yeah, and let's be honest, to that point about Alicia Keys, let's be honest, her reputation, even to this day, even though they've been married now for over a decade, has never fully recovered from that.
Didn't Kerry Washington do the same thing? Am I misremembering?
No, not Kerry Washington.
Okay, not her. Okay, I thought that I misremembered that.
But even right now, for instance, Cardi B and Offset, right? People were going off like, oh my God, you not even divorced and you out here having another man's baby.
I can agree with that, because that's crazy, because we watched him cheat. Ain't no judgment here, but I did think that was wild. I'm like, hold on.
Publicly gaslight this woman by these grandiose gestures.
Yeah, he kept cheating again, and she took him back. We all watched it. They are no longer together. They got a parental agreement. They got a schedule for the kids. She went off, dated somebody else, got pregnant, and it's like, dang, y'all just broke up. No, exactly. They've been breaking up in front of our faces.
And see, and the closest example I can think of to where so people may have forgotten about this, and they didn't even, and not saying he should be held accountable, not judging his personal life, but just pointing out the hypocrisy. When Dwayne Wade had that break baby, when him and Gabrielle Union went on a break, because they were just like, we need space, and then they got back together, nobody ridiculed Dwayne Wade about that. It was just a case of, well, technically y'all were on a break, y'all weren't together, y'all didn't move forward with the marriage. But we let that slide. We didn't hold him to scrutiny. But I've been reading posts about Cardi B as in like, you got 4 kids, now you got 2 baby daddies. Like, come on, if divorce hasn't even been completed yet. And even Offset felt the need to say something about that. As in like, you divorcing this woman, bro. Why are you even having any commentary on this? My way of just saying, women have to be more strategic with the infidelity, because look what we do. We shame them.
That's a good point.
We shame them. It is the modern day version of stoning of the town tramp, except for now we do it in tweets, we do it in little TikToks, and we just kind of just put it out there.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way. Dr. Bell?
I fully agree. I mean, but it comes up in therapy, and I think to your initial point about how people go about infidelity differently in that cost analysis, it's born out of needing to be more clandestine, because in the instance that a man is caught cheating, like you said, it's just boys will be boys. It's the same thing with sexuality our entire lives. When you have gender differences, everyone is having sex. However, boys will be boys, and boys are having sex. And the girls' version of that it's not the same at all, right? It's very much like keep your legs crossed, so you be a lady. You know, like the expectations are set very differently from an early age, is what I'm saying.
No, I agree with that 1,000%. In the inverse of that, well, and not that in regard, but what we were talking about was the love part. There have been instances that I've had in therapy where men have gone and cheated on their partners because of the way their partners communicate with them. So communication, in my experience, the leading cause for divorce, when I looked it up, is lack of commitment. The primary catalyst for divorce is infidelity and communication. I've had men come to therapy after cheating on their partners because it's literally three cases. I see all three of them in my head right now. It's their partner talked to them disrespectfully. They love their partner. They want to do life with their partner, but the ticking away every single time, can't do conflict resolution, always with the tongue lashing. It led them to go talk to someone else that could give them, to build them back up, not talk down to them. Because we were only talking about the physical part of it. I do think that of course there is, everybody. The logical conclusion is there is an emotional part to it. There have been instances where I've seen people, women as well, but mainly men. It's predominantly men that I see this one for, where their partner talks to them in a certain way to where they seek that comfort in somebody else. I would agree that emotional cheating is definitely harder to let go of. Definitely a harder bond to break, because I'm not trying to degrade the physical nature of intimacy. That's a very, very important part. And I'm going to get to that example later on. The emotional part is the hardest bond to break, because I feel like you said it, Dr. Bell, attachment is emotional. Mm-hmm. Emotions are the things that make memories and the things in life worthwhile. That is I know variety is the spice of life, but it's the emotion that's connected to the variety that is the spice of life. In my experience, I've seen it. I've seen where men go and seek comfort in other people because their partner just talks to them the wrong way, which leads me to an interesting thing to bring to this podcast. What is the issue in that regard? Is it, because remember I said we had talked about before, people had an issue with, like, sometimes when you come to therapy to talk about infidelity from a relationship, one of the things I ask is, how did we all get here? I often ask, what did we each contribute to get us here? And the person who is the victim of the cheating often goes, I didn't do anything wrong. And they have a hard time accepting when the other person says, using these three people that I'm thinking about, their example of, no, you were disrespectful with how you talked to me. You were rude. You always made fun of me. You always talked down to me. You told me I was less of a man. You did all this stuff. And then the other person yells, none of that is a reason for you to go cheat. And now I know when I just said that line there's going to be at least a male, I can say, that's going to look at that and be like, oh, that's yes, that is. I could see that online, and somebody's gonna be like, yes, that is. But I'm bringing this to the podcast for our listeners to I guess hear us as we talk through it, and everybody's opinion here, and I'll share mine after I hear yours, so I can go first. Who's at fault there, or what is not who's at fault? I guess that's the wrong way of saying it. Is that a two-way issue?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, right? Like you have to be able to take a step back. If you're truly coming to therapy, you're trying to come together, heal, and resolve the rift between you. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to take a step back and really look at how you got there. If you cannot acknowledge how you both contributed to how you got into this space, you cannot heal and resolve that issue, right? Mm-hmm. So a part of that hard look especially the person who feels, especially for the person who was cheated on, part of that hard look is looking at your own behaviors and recognizing space that you can have some improvement there, and you just have to be honest. And does talking down to someone or making someone feel less than, does that give you a reason to cheat? Well, no, but it does absolutely make you feel like you may need to seek comfort somewhere else. You may need to seek support somewhere else. I think it gives you a slippery slope to making a bad decision.
Oh, okay. See, that's a tricky one. I always say in situations with couples, I have to take it by case basis. Only for the simple fact that the majority of the time, it usually is two people and how they're responding to each other, what's going on. But then there's also some of those instances where you work with the couples and you really realize, no, your partner has been on the up and up. This is a decision that you've made outside of your partner, and we need to figure out why. And in those cases, even the person who cheated would say like, no, they do everything. They're supportive, they're nurturing, they're loving, they're available to me, all that jazz. But those aren't the majority of cases, but those are the instances. But to your point, in most cases, it is a case of us having to take a step back and say, okay, if this is a us thing that we both entered into, how are we both playing into this dynamic? Like really asking those tough questions, because sometimes it's not even the extreme of talking down to your partner. Sometimes it's just not being emotionally available and not being affectionate, as in like, well, I always have to initiate the intimacy. And I'm not even just talking about sex. I'm talking about holding hands, kissing, spending quality time, right?
Wanting to be desired. That's a big thing.
For me personally, in my experience, that is a huge issue.
I want to be adored. I want to be desired. I want to be wanted.
Getting to being in the place in this relationship, particularly if you got married, where you've committed yourself to this person, and getting to this weird place. If you just get in there, or maybe if you felt in the beginning, that becomes a different conversation. But if you get to this place where you feel as though you are no longer desired, that becomes the doorway that people step through to find someone that's going to desire them. And it doesn't even just have to be sex. It can just be they want to go out to dinner with me. They go out to plays with me. They want to go to concerts. They text and ask me how I'm doing. They're consistent in meeting me Friday mornings for coffee, and they always pay. It's just a case of that part of like, am I still desired? And whatever that looks like for that person. Because there's plenty of people out here who still have sex with their significant other, and their significant other still doesn't feel desired. As in, like, it's good that you want to have sex. That's awesome. I'm all for it. But do you really desire me in the sense of picking my intellect, having the same interests and things that I have, or even being curious about my own interests?
I can see that, QD. That's a good point, because being desired is a big deal. Like, for instance, when you said I've had clients say that, why do I always got to be the one to initiate sex? Why? Because the other person says, I feel like you make it feel like you don't even desire me to be intimate with me. I'm always the one initiating sex. And to the original point, yes, it is a two-way problem, but it's not a but. But is the wrong word. It's more so that I find that when it comes to, how do I want to walk this in? Men get a misrepresentation of being of not being emotional. I think that being labeled an emotional male is a negative thing, because men don't want to take on that connotation. But as men, we have emotions. So I use that as the foundation to say that I think that people by and large don't understand that men's feelings can get hurt. And I feel like there are times where it's often taken for granted, using the example that I brought in. So, like, for instance, that you're accustomed to talking to a certain way to men, which I can respect, because there are certain settings where I have to take charge and lead because I work in a male-dominated field, and you're bringing that style of communication home. But you haven't, separated the two. Or maybe that, we just don't have really good conflict resolution as people, that when I'm in a heated situation, no, it's conquer and win. It's not dissolve, resolve, and negotiate, or dissolve, negotiate, and resolve. It's not one of those things. So the communication aspect is really, really big, because using those examples that I just thought of, that I've even had a client, he didn't even cheat. They broke up. He cheated the first time because of how she had talked to him. They broke up. He went out. He kept going to therapy, worked on himself, dated, realized, I really do love this person. They got back together, and the first thing I said was, I need to do couples counseling, otherwise it's going to rear its ugly head. They didn't do couples counseling. It reared its ugly head. This time, he didn't even want to cheat. He just grew numb. He just wanted out of the situation. And I thought that was an interesting growth moment for him, because he was like, no, I really wanted this to work out. I didn't want this to end. I wanted us to work. I just want her out now, because they're still talking to me recklessly. And then on the flip side of that, going to seek comfort in somebody else, while I don't judge anybody for doing that, I can definitely see how come you did that. There's also a way of communicating to your partner where I think on that side where you're the one going out cheating, looking for something else, where you can't always just say, don't talk to me like that. Mm-hmm. I don't hate to be the one to tell you this. That can't always be the answer of don't talk to me like that. You have to communicate sometimes how you want to be communicated to. Mm-hmm. You have to break it down to them like, look, when we had these heated conversations, you're doing this. Mm-hmm. All right? And I need you to communicate with me. I need you to communicate with me like this. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I know somebody may say, but what if I do that? It's a repetitive process. Mm-hmm. People often think that just because we talk about it in therapy one time, it'll be resolved going forward. Yeah, exactly. They're like, but we talked about this in therapy. Why are you still doing this? Nah, repetitiveness. You have to remind and be willing to be reminded. That means that someone in the midst of the argument has to stop and be like, we talked about this in therapy. Mm-hmm. We said we wouldn't do this, and we're about to do it. You're right. I'm sorry. Forgive me. That means you got to, forgive and let them fix and course correct the action. You don't just now start throwing stones like, I knew you wouldn't change. You can't stop talking. No. You caught it. They didn't. You reminded them. They said, I'm sorry. Cool. Accept the apology and let them work the communication style to become whole. I say that to say this, that while I can respect and understand why you went to go look for someone else, you also have to own up and take a look and go, did I communicate to them effectively how I want them to communicate with me in that example? Not judging you. I'm just saying that as a dual-headed problem, it's not just you cheating is the issue. It's also just like they can't communicate effectively with you, you're not communicating effectively with them neither. Communication is a two-way street. It's not always going to be stop talking to me like this, stop talking to me like this. You're right. Well, then how you want them to talk to you? Go right in.
So my 8 a.m. today, married couple, 34 years or 36 years.
You do a couple at 8 a.m.?
On a Friday.
On a Friday? Yo, hey, that's tough.
It's awful.
That is, at 8 a.m.? I do my couples in the afternoon.
They are very busy, successful people, and their schedule really...
that makes sense. That makes sense. It
is what it is. I'm already roped into it. So 8 a.m. today.
8 a.m.
Started
today.
our day. And the husband, like I said, 34 or 36 years they've been married. So older couple, adult children. The husband, he scheduled the appointments. And the wife comes on screen, and this is our third session. The wife comes on screen, and she is very dissatisfied overall in her marriage, right? He doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that. And we have 12 light bulbs out in the house, specifically 12 light bulbs out in the house, and he did not notice or change any of those light bulbs. Like, I'm doing everything on my own, et cetera, and so forth, right? And she's elevating, and I'm watching him deflate. Right? Like he's just shrinking into his chair, that emotional numbness, that separation, and just letting her do her thing. And you're watching the dynamic. Right? She's escalating and more frustrated because she desires something different from him, but she's creating an environment in which he can't give her that. Right? Someone would argue that he could go change the 12 light bulbs. It's deeper than that, right? So they've entered this cycle of he doesn't meet her expectations. Her response to that is, it was kind of aggressive, honestly. Aggressiveness, really speaking down to him like he was one of the children, basically is the vibe that you get. And so it was his turn to speak after she wrapped up. And I said, can you tell me your perspective on that or something to that effect? And he said, I just feel like she doesn't like me. But her face. And she looked at him and she said, you've never told me that. But it's spaces in which... to your point, there's a responsibility of communicating, but there's also a responsibility of creating an environment that is safe enough to communicate in.
Damn,
and he didn't feel like he could have that conversation with her without a third party present to kind of, I guess, honestly, validate the experience that he was having at home. So I think it's just interesting. And to your point, there's duality in that.
But no, you hit it right on the head. Like, to your point, you're right. I appreciate that. That's a layer to consider. Like, people come to therapy like, why didn't, to your point, you never said that. Why you never said that to me? There's a point where you got to point out, well, are you creating a space for them to do that? Because I'm not about to keep walking in here getting cussed out. It's just not going to happen. I'm not going to keep walking.
Invalidated.
Yeah, invalidated, telling me, oh, that's not true and this isn't that. You're 1,000% correct on that, because you have to create the space to communicate. And to that point, it's interesting you share that, because in my perspective, in my therapist brain, just like yours, like, we use behaviors to communicate to our environment. Her doing all that, I'm willing to bet in her mind, she thought that, to a part of her part, it's like, how could you not see these things? How could you not know that this was what my behavior meant in that regard? I do want to, Keith, did you have something you want to say before I segued?
No, the only thing I was going to say in that situation, it's always interesting what happens when people feel as though they're being taken for granted, and how that comes across to their partner. As in, like, okay, instead of you just flat out saying, look, I feel like you take me for granted, instead of just showing me the hostility, which you have a right to be angry, but instead of showing me the hostility, maybe I could do something about it. But because I only see the hostility, all the things I'm not doing, then I can't see that you're feeling undervalued. The only thing I can feel is that you just don't like me. So having that space, and even maybe having the verbiage or the language to be able to kind of say that, and even help comb through and say, like, well, this what it looks like, not saying it is happening here. How do you both feel about that?
Fair enough. And in light of, it reminded me to say this, I wanted to say this as well. When we say that couples counseling in the morning is tough, it's because it's 3 of us in the session usually, and it's 2 people bombarding the therapist with their perspective, their emotion. That is a lot at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Before coffee.
Before caffeine.
And they normally have, they're in the same home, they've slept together, and you're preparing for your session the next day. It's on your mind. So they have been able to marinate.
They have
what they want to bring to you at 8 o'clock. And they are
fresh.
Ready.
It's fresh in the day. They hit the ground. Couples hit the ground running sometimes. It's a lot. A little fun insight. Individuals way easier in the morning, 1,000% easier in the morning compared to couples or families. In the morning at 8 o'clock, man.
You didn't even have the work day to have the separation and something to distract you. Like, you just
log right in. Here we go. Let them in. Bam. Here we go. How's everybody doing today?
That's how it started.
Well, since you asked,
the light bulb's still out.
Yes. Dr. B, I appreciate your services. This was a great experience. We are ending couples counseling. It's not because of you. Your questions and the exercise and the homeworks we did made me realize this ain't going to go anywhere. Those epiphanies are the ones that, not catch me off guard, but I'm always like, man, that kind of came in and caught me off guard. Fair enough. Well, everybody, hope you got something out of this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. As usual, like, comment, subscribe, click that little bell icon to get the notifications when our new episodes drop. And that concludes this episode of For Us Therapeutics with your host. I'm Dr. B.
Dr. LaKeith.
Dr. Gigi.
And we will see you next time for another episode.